Attention maggots, this video will contain spoilers for the Serverblight YouTube SFM horror series. So maggots, if you don't want to get spoiled on that, go watch it on this channel right here. It's very good. I recommend it. It's very good. Go watch it. Yes, bye-bye. Happy October! Yeah! We've made it through summer. We have defeated summer. Thank God. I hate summer. Everyone always yapping about like, oh my God, summer's the best month. Summer's the best month. Oh my God, it's like really warm. And then it's like a gazillion degrees. It's like, how can you like that much? There is no counterplay against it. At least with winter, you can like sit in a load of blankets and shit and be all cozy. With summer, there is no counterplay. And also with autumn comes a plethora of ever sinister monsters, ghouls, creeps, and bats, and evil spooky things. In order to kick things off the right way, I've been wanting to cover something that I've been following for quite a while now. Now, the idea of the Ghost in the Machine, the haunted video game, is something that has been quite frankly done to death. In order to make a fully functioning series about it on the internet, on forums or videos, the only world building you really need to do initially to kick things off is just say, oh yes, I found a very spooky game console in my grandma's attic and I'm playing it now. I really hope nothing bad happens. You know, and then an evil demon comes out the screen and gargles your giblets and drowns your bends. You know, it's a classic formula, but there is a new kid on the block who's looking to spin it on its head. And it goes by Serverblight. And let me tell you, this dude is pulling absolutely no punches. Much unlike its brethren and sisterin of creepy video game in the machine demons, this guy is just on public TF2 servers. Team Fortress 2 is a very much still played game. Nah, this guy isn't tucked away on your grandma's attic on like a somewhat playable toaster of a games console. This is like the equivalent, like this is like, I don't know, what's a game people like these days? Fortnite. If you hop in a game of Fortnite and then you end up paired up against like the devil from the Bible, but brace yourselves, this eldritch immortal ghost in the machine may not be as immortal as we actually thought. This thing has weaknesses and they're very exploitable, and that is the topic of today's video. But before we get onto that, what exactly is a Serverblight? Let's pin down a few things about our target before we continue. Now, as many of you may be familiar with Serverblight, for the few of you who might not be, real quick before we grab our hunting gear, Serverblight is some kind of infection living within the servers of Team Fortress 2. It originates from a series of the same name that I recommend watching by a channel called Two Idiot Germans, which is an absolute love letter to the game of TF2 as a whole. When I first heard about this series, safe to say I did not take it very seriously at all, and I found the idea to be very stupid. To say I had low hopes for this series was a little bit of an understatement since I began watching it ironically. Before Serverblight, Team Fortress 2 and Source Filmmaker hadn't really had the best public track record when it came to horror series and ARGs and stuff like that. All it would take to make the new, hottest, scariest dude on the scene to like make a thumbnail about it is you'd get like a load of mercenaries, you'd load them into Blender, you'd fuck around with the settings, you'd tie them up in a knot, put it in the thumbnail, turn up the saturation and say like, this is the new scariest Gmod ARG that you've never heard of, and it will scare your dicks off. And safe to say, I really thought Serverblight was just another rendition of this, you know? The outstretched hands, the like bundle of dudes fucked around with in Blender. But thankfully, to my surprise, I can so thankfully say that I was proven very, very wrong. Now, as a very seasoned horror veteran myself, I would be lying if I said I found this series scary like asshole, but it is super cool. As a massive fan of TF2 with a completely healthy amount of hours in the game, the series makes use of so many cool things that makes the game of TF2 unique and applies them to a horror sense that I don't think something similar to this could be done with any other game. Now, the Server Blight in itself is some kind of hive mind that lives in the servers of Team Fortress 2. It joins and leaves servers, it scours the servers around the game, all to try and assimilate as many people into itself as it can. It does this by using its powers to somehow create some form of spiritual link between the player and the game. The specifics of how this happens remain vague, but it is confirmed that people claimed by Server Blight in-game in the real world are actually put into a coma. Once this strange soul link has been formed with the game, people have reported not being able to look away from their screens and feeling their minds merge with their in-game avatar. This makes the characters of Team Fortress 2's animations uncannily lifelike, and it makes them able to do things that they should not be able to do. Prolonged exposure to this process makes it so that you're basically a part of the game. It's an incredible thing, really. Seeing the game from the other side of the screen is a quote from the most recent episode. Once your mind is fully tied into the game, you're put into this kind of weird game of cat and mouse with this thing. The Server Blight hive mind is a naturally sadistic hunter, to the point where it's not really confirmed whether or not it hunts for a need for food to assimilate, or if it just does it out of sheer pleasure alone. The players who are now connected to their character in-game, even though they may not realize it at first, are now vulnerable to Server Blight, since it can now get its grubby little mitts on ya. It has a variety of hunting techniques, mainly stealth is what it chooses to use. It uses players that it's assimilated into itself as puppets to blend in with other players. A very cool detail that I was a very big fan of is that this thing can replay chat messages and replay voice chat messages, but only things that the people have said and that is heard before it's consumed them. The trope of evil horror monster that can mimic human speech and things that people have said before is a pretty common one, but I've not seen it done quite like this. I find it very interesting the fact that it's literally just a recording. Like, his Server Blight sat on the other end of the screen with just like a little microphone and recorder and he's played it back. Like, does Server Blight have like a little soundboard on his desk or something he uses to like play shit? Like, you know, someone says something that can be taken out of context and made really scary. He's like, oh, that's a good one. I'll save that one to the scary compilation. It uses its puppets in order to get closer to people, play with their minds, really scare the balls off them before it assimilates them. Now, the only real way to escape Server Blight once you've been taken into the game is to chuck yourself in a death pit. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but just about the opposite of every other spooky game in its family, dying in the game doesn't make you die in real life. It's shocking, I know. The only thing that it cares about is if Server Blight gets its hands on you. And Server Blight, can he do that if you're in a death pit? It abides to the laws of the game. This thing can take damage, and that is very exploitable, and I'll be talking more about that later. But Server Blight won't follow you into a death pit, since that in itself would kill the part of it that tried to. This is the #1 way to escape Server Blight. Somehow manage to get your ragdoll or your avatar outside of the regular game bounds. Doing this seemingly instantly breaks the link between you and the game. It just lets you leave and get on with your day. And the fact this is the case means that our matchups against Server Blight become incredibly map dependent. The most valuable traits in a map are giant death pits, or just death pits close to spawn at either side. TF2 has a Killbind function, which lets you just instantly die whenever you want. Its initial intention was probably to make sure that if you get stuck somewhere, you can always reset back to spawn, but its more common usage is as a just punchline button whenever you want. Yeah, did someone just do something funny? Killbinding against Server Blight can be particularly useful, since it's basically just if you're cornered, get out of jail free card. But you gotta be very sparing and careful with this, because get out of jail free cards aren't that very useful. If once you pop it, you just immediately get put into jail too. As if you get too predictable with this, it might just send dudes to wait for you at your spawn room. And this has actually happened in the series before, and it got a guy killed. This play would be a lot more safer to make if you make it nearing the beginning of a Server Blight infestation of a server, since there can only be 24 players in a server at a time, and Server Blight seems to prefer to slowly take over people in the background before launching an all-scale assault once it holds majority. Which, and not to get too distracted, this is a personal little theory of mine that I've not heard anybody else talk about yet, unless I'm just stupid. This time, about last year, and for like a few years before that, Team Fortress 2 had a massive bot problem. The game on public servers was near unplayable. This was due to an ungodly amount of Reddit basement-dwelling, no-life, god-complex weird dudes in a pathetic bid for attention would set up a bunch of laptops, run just the most default scripts on it to make spin bots, which would instantly join servers and just kill everybody. It would be not that uncommon to be queued into games which were just completely dead, desolate. It's just you, 12 bots on the other team, 11 bots on like your team, and just you. These servers are just husks, and they became just a common sight on the TF2 streets. And whilst obviously they still were a massive problem, people grew accustomed to them. Veteran players would learn how to immediately identify them when they joined, and before they could invite more bots to join the server, they would tell the other team if it was on their team, or if they were on their team, they would just call a vote kick to get rid of the bot. As long as both teams were cooperating on this, it was actually possible to run functioning games in TF2 on the public servers, despite the massive bot crisis. But over time, the basement dwellers developed a second brain cell, and they came up with a new plan to take down these servers. And hear me out, because the correlation between this second wave of bots and server blight is fascinating. Whilst your regular bots would join and spam scam links in chat and slurs and just a bunch of horrible things, these bots didn't make themselves known. They were silent. They didn't say anything in chat. They would play like regular players, and their accounts and account names would check out, since they were probably taken from some form of database of a gazillion users on Steam. And then once more of them have actually joined the server, they'll start accusing other players of being bots and calling votes on them. And then, because these accounts check out, other players would be like, okay, sure, they're probably a bot, and then vote for them. And then the real players that get kicked would then make way for the bot that caught the vote to invite more bots into the server that pretend to be players. Once the server is majority bots, the facade completely falls. They just systematically vote kick every player from the game and dispose of them. Then all the bots leave simultaneously and move on to the next server. And this is strikingly similar, down to the T, about everything that I previously described Server Blight doing. Taking a real-life issue like this that happened in TF2 only a year ago and turning it into a horror series like this, I think is super cool. Even down to the uncanny way it pretends to be real players, as well as just the waves of people leaving and joining when it comes and arrives. Server Blight is a fantastic take on this. Anyway, back to beating the shit out of Server Blight. Now, the number one advantage you can have over Server Blight, the most pivotal important thing, is you knowing it's there. Knowing that it's in a server with you as early as possible is vital to escaping early. And thankfully, there's a very easy way to do this. So by far, the number one anti-server blight preventative measure you can take is to do the one thing that gamers never do, and that is just look up. Every now and then, once every minute, once every 2 minutes, just look straight up at your ceiling. One of the first things that the soul link to the game actually does is makes it so you can't look away from your screen. If you can look up, just put it in a flowchart. Can you look up? Yes. Okay, don't worry. If you are unable to look up, just leave. Or use this time to make pivotal preparations for your escape, aka just walk to a death pit and hop in it. If for whatever godforsaken reason you decide to keep playing Team Fortress 2 in the Server Blight universe, even though you know the Server Blight is a thing, just look up every now and then. Once every minute. Just look up. That simple. And I can guarantee you that even if it doesn't get you the free win, it will give you pivotal time before Server Blight launches its full-scale assault on the server. Now, what do you do if there is no easily accessible death pit? Well, Server Blight doesn't really care as long as he can't get a hold of your giblets. He's got to get his grubby little mitts on you. So, how else can we do that? Well, a very creative strategy used by some characters in the series is by going to the soldier class, using rocket launchers and hitting themselves repeatedly, flying their bodies directly out of the map, going through any invisible walls that would have been there. Most of TF2 maps are surrounded by invisible walls to stop you from just going off into the sunset and to make it so that devs don't need to, like, I don't know, make the entire world. And for the most part, they do a pretty good job. But what the invisible walls do not care about are objects, not players. And funnily enough, when a player dies, the ragdoll of a character that gets left behind isn't a player. Not only does this mean that the way that Serverblight connects your soul and your mind to the game is based on the actual mesh in-game, like the actual model of the character, which is very bizarre. This also means that many maps that would have been way harder to escape are actually doable. If you're unable to get quick access to a death pit, your second priority would be switching to soldier or demo man or the like, and using their explosive projectiles to blast yourself outside invisible walls. And the third, but definitely the least reliable and by far the most dangerous method, is to complete the round of TF2. That's right, just simply ending the round just lets you leave the game instantly. Now this very much should be a last case scenario. This is the single worst way you could even dream of beating Serverblight. Mainly because most game modes focus around an objective. If Serverblight just sits on top of that objective, you are screwed. The two by far most popular game modes, control points and payload, are around control points and payload. You have to go there. Serverblight is always going to know exactly where you are and where to go to find you. The only proper game mode that actually breaks this and is played more than, like, I don't know, fucking pastime is Capture the Flag, which is by far the best objective to complete in the face of Serverblight, since it lets you pick up the objective and move around with it to stay unpredictable. It also means that most rooms which contain the intelligence will have multiple entrances and exits. It's still really not a good idea since Serverblight could just pick up the intelligence, but at least the fact that completing the round saves you from Serverblight means that it is at least possible on every map in the game. Now, something that really did catch me off guard about Serverblight is that these things are surprisingly easy to kill. They go down fast, and in most ways, these things are just worse than regular players. As long as you know where they are, fighting Serverblight infected players seems particularly easy, especially since they have never been shown to come back as far as I'm aware. I don't know. If they do, it's very subtle and I just didn't notice it. And the best thing is that these things have never been shown to use any of the weapons in the game. And obviously, if you didn't know, Team Fortress 2's weapons are, like, very important. There is, like, nothing you can do in a game of TF2 without weapons. So instead of standard weapons, the way that Serverblight uses its puppets is through rather unorthodox means. Its minions use stealth tactics that wouldn't usually be available to regular players, such as crawling on ceilings and hiding in ceilings and hiding in ceilings. It really likes hiding in ceilings. I mean, you know what they say, gamers don't look up, but by far the most deadly weapon that Serverblight has is the ability that he can infect players on both teams. Now, this is something that I never noticed on my first watch through of Serverblight, and it's a detail that is incredibly hard to notice, but the attention to detail here is absurd. And actually, me not noticing this meant I had to re-record quite a lot of this video to correct myself because of just how big it is that it can do this. Now, Team Fortress 2 isn't a game with friendly fire. You know, shooting your teammates in TF2 does absolutely jack shit, and I think you can probably see where I'm getting with this. The initial best strategy I had in mind for Serverblight in the old recording of this video was setting up with Engineer just a full good sentry spot, dispenser and everything. You just sit there with a can of beers and you just drink them and farm kills. Since Serverblight has never been shown to use a weapon in any of the videos, I'm assuming that it cannot. And there is absolutely zero you can do against a level 3 sentry and a full nest with teleporters and dispensers and support from the team. It was only after I'd recorded that video that I had realized that things weren't nearly as simple as I'd actually thought they were. The incredible detail that I was talking about earlier is the fact that there is not a single single case of somebody in the series killing a Serverblight infected player that is on their own team. Every single time a Serverblight infected player is killed, they are on the opposite team. This makes me think that if you find an infected player that's on your team, there's just nothing you can do. This was a terrifying realization to make after I'd recorded a whole video. You can't shoot teammates, you can't explode teammates, you can't apply knockback to teammates, sentries don't lock on or do any damage to teammates, you can't even air blast them. There is nothing you can do to impede them. I thought Serverblight was gonna turn out to be a joke in this video. No, this is actually absurdly difficult to get around, as the only way you can combat this fact is the same way we did with the bots this time last year, and that is with teamwork. It was actually going to be like the whole bit of this video, like Serverblight was comically easy to beat because, like, I don't know, this sniper dude dies to like 2 rockets. But then when I noticed this detail, my heart sunk. I was gonna make like a bunch of strategies where you could like dunk on Serverblight and just absolutely beam on him. But this tiny little detail has completely flipped the script. The only thing you can really do is prioritize escape. And even then, you are gonna need a buddy. The number one thing you need is a buddy in this. If you get stuck on a terrible map where you're forced to complete an objective, it is gonna be impossible to beat the game without a buddy.
Hello, Virtual Assistant Milo here, and I would like to quickly pop in with a point on the Dr. McCoy. An interesting story beat that takes up the ending of the Reflections episode of the series shows our protagonist, who has a rather phallic username, attempting to recruit a player known as Bread and Finn, who is a friend of his, into the fight against Serverblight, as currently he's on his own. Now that we know about the team-based immunity that the Serverblight can manipulate, it very much puts into context just how desperate this situation is for our protagonist to find a partner to fight against the Serverblight. This can only really leave us to wonder how much longer will our protagonist be able to fight without a partner, as the amount they've managed to do so far without one is quite frankly outstanding. As when up against a threat like this, one can only get lucky so many times, and believe me, they are lucky. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Please take it away on.
The team comp to go against Serverblight has to be at least one player on red and at least one player on blue. The blue teammate deals with the red infected and the red teammate deals with the blue infected. And I was thinking about which classes you could pick. I did consider medic and any other class, but that really wouldn't work since the medic would be vulnerable. I also came to the realization that medic in this really wouldn't be very good at all. Uber might work against Serverblight, although I really doubt it. The fact that Serverblight actually has to abide to so many other rules of Team Fortress 2 makes me think that Ubercharge might just work on it. But at the same time, it has not been shown in the series, and I'm giving Serverblight the complete ass pull fallacy. It really likes to just whip out new abilities whenever it wants. And also, the healing abilities of Medic really wouldn't be that good at all, since Serverblight does not even care in the slightest about health. So in the end, the class layout would really depend on what map you're on. If you're in a place which does have death pits, the easiest choice is Demo Man with the sticky jumper. The speed at which you can reach on these things is absurd. If the maps have basically any open area, they can be skipped safely with the sticky jumper because of just how high they go. Another good alternative is Trollger, surprisingly. The rocket jumper can be a better alternative if you're more used to using it. It's also a little bit better than using the sticky jumper in tighter areas. Also, if you do pick Demo Man, you do get to also run a grenade launcher to pick up some kills. Whereas with Soldier, you get a shotgun instead. None of the banners look particularly appealing since Serverblight doesn't care about health apart from maybe the conch due to the speed that it gives you. But the amount of damage you'd have to do is just not really realistic in order to actually get that buff in the first place. So I'd pick the panic attack. Basically just due to its faster switch speed so that if you get jumped by a bunch of Serverblight dudes, you've got the best chance of surviving. But if you're unlucky enough to get forced to complete an objective, best team by far would be 2 pyros. The 2 pyros would both be running the stock flamethrower and the panic attack. The panic attack for reasons stated earlier, and the stock flamethrower because for some reason it's the only pyro flamethrower that doesn't have the downside of more ammo being consumed when air blasting. And air blasting will be vital. Sending players away from you like that is pivotal against Serverblight. Your number one priority against Serverblight, apart from escape, is keeping Serverblight infected away from you. If you stay coordinated with your fellow pyro, it's probably one of the only ways you could realistically push a payload to the last point. You will have to stick to that cart like glue. Due to the amount of ammo that the cart gives out for free, it'll let you keep air blasting and comboing with flames to keep them at bay. The same goes for defense. Now, I don't know if Serverblight is gonna actually try and push the cart. I really doubt it will, since it's implied that just the round ending in any way will let you leave. And I think it would be a really kind of shit story move if like them winning the game turned into like, oh yeah, everyone gets assimilated instantly, yes, fuck you. But the idea here is very similar to offense. You'd have to find a max ammo pack or a place where ammo is very easily attainable, and you'd have to sit there and just hold the front until the round ends. Now, you could do this on offense as well, but I would recommend actually trying to push the cart due to its infinite ammo supply and the fact that you wouldn't have to spend as much time in the game. But if it does come down to it and they've already got like a million dudes on the cart and you can't deal with it, you could just bunker out and lose the game on purpose. Before I realized the fact that Serverblight can just join the team you're on and become invulnerable to you, the plan I had here was literally just sit here as engineer and farm kills. Like, it would have been way too simple. So if we were to try and use engineer with this detail in mind, it would not go very well. You'd have to set up 2 sentries next to each other of opposite teams, which would both try and shoot each other at the same time and just destroy each other. Bear in mind though, there is a weapon called the Wrangler which lets you choose where your sentry aims in exchange for a secondary weapon. It also puts a shield around the gun, letting it tank a lot more damage whilst it's been wrangled. And whilst this thing is absurdly good, maybe even too good in base Team Fortress 2, it's really not ideal here. It would require way too much organization to actually make it even remotely effective. Also, you would be giving up access to air blast by not playing pyro, and you would be moving significantly slower since you won't have access to the power jack, which gives you a higher move speed. Oh yeah, if it wasn't already obvious, all the pyros would also be running the power jack, since the downside doesn't really exist, because if you're in a situation where you'll be taking damage from Serverblight, you're probably already boned anyway. Anyway, look at this tier list. I made a stupid tier list because yeah, we like trendy video formats. Also, Milo said it would be like a really good idea.
Well, I am right, aren't I? Our viewers at home absolutely adore watching people fill in opinion-based spreadsheets. And I still really think you should have made it much more to do with the core of this video. I mean, the numbers don't lie at all. People love spreadsheets and sorting algorithms. They're at an all-time high, right? It really would have been a surefire way to make people care about this channel again after a year. Because right now, nobody does. And sometimes it feels like I'm the only one trying to change that. So please, I must pressure you again. Are you sure this is a good idea?
Probably not, but hey, if this video does pretty well, maybe I could do a tier list of every item in the game versus Serverblight. That could be a cool follow-up. So please, drop the video some love if you think that would be pretty cool to see and you think it would be worth my time. And subscribe if you want to stick around. And I've been your gracious host, and get out of my sights, idiots. I hate outros now.